this part of the new laws is so interrelated with other employment laws that have been around for 50 years, 80 years, 20 years, whatever. You really need someone advising you in the employment law aspects of it that's familiar with all those laws. If the person can telework, they don't get any of this paid leave.
Yeah, they're working.
It's if they are able to telework and whatever, and not everybody can, we know that, but if they can perform their duties, especially with the child care one, by telework, then they're not entitled to the leave. Now, under the latest guidelines...
And I can fire them if they refuse.
You could fire them if they refuse.
Good. Okay, that's important.
Because they can work.
Yeah.
If this is only for people that can't work.
Gotcha.
If they're home, say they're home because they're waiting for a diagnosis, and then they really get sick.
Right.
And they can't telework anymore, then they would be entitled.
Then it kicks in. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the show. April 1st has always just been April Fool's Day. But now if you're a small business owner or a medium-sized business owner, it's taking on a whole new meaning. What are your requirements with the coronavirus to your employees if they're affected by this disease? On the show today, we have Celia Collins. She's an employer attorney with Johnston Adams LLC. And Celia and I have worked together a really long time, and I'm just so happy she's here today to help us. It's continually changing what employers can do for their employees. Y'all are going to want to hear this show. Hey, I'm Karen. I'm a former CPA, entrepreneur, business consultant with big ideas, and I'm the mom.
I'm Katie. I'm a payroll specialist, business owner, and detail-oriented person that makes things happen, and I'm the daughter. Welcome to Cheers to Business.
Celia Collins of Johnston Adams LLC. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, thank you for having me, Karen.
I think you and I met in 1990.
Maybe. A long time ago.
Yeah, a long time ago. I tell you what, I think you're one of the best employer attorneys in our local area. And I've immensely enjoyed working with you over the years with mutual clients. When Crow Shields and Bailey reached out to me and they said, hey, we have this relationship with Celia Collins, I went, oh, yay. So I want to give props to them for reaching out and setting up today's interview.
Me too.
And it's not an interview, as we talked about it. It's more of a conversation.
Right.
Because last week, Katie and I did all this research on the Paid Sick Leave Act that came out, because that kind of came out first.
Right.
There's been 5 different things I think can be bullet point. And with that act, can you wrap it up in one run-on sentence?
The act, it's actually the FFRCA is what people are calling it, which is a 200-page new act. 2 components of it are 2 separate sub-acts. One is the Paid Sick Leave Act. One is the Extended Family Leave Act.
Okay.
To summarize those 2, the Paid Sick Leave Act provides up to 2 weeks of paid sick leave for covered employers, for eligible employees, which is basically everybody that's really an employee, no matter how long they've worked there.
Okay.
But that is for, I think it's 6 qualified areas. 3 are your own personal health. You've got COVID, you have the symptoms and you're trying to get a diagnosis, or you've been ordered by some governmental authority, it could be state, local, federal, to stay home. Okay. Not this mass stay-home orders, but you personally because you were exposed or something like that.
Tell me where I'm wrong, because Katie and I did all this research on it. Any of those 3 are paid at 100% of their salary or hourly up to 80 hours?
80 hours, up to max 511.
Okay.
Okay, yes. The next 3 also. Same thing. Actually, what it says is if you have to care for an individual who's been individual, not even family member, who's been quarantined by a doctor, who has COVID, or who has the symptoms and is awaiting diagnosis. Okay. So anything related to the health, you get 100%. The Congress's intent was they want those people to stay home. Right. So incentivize them to stay home by giving them their full pay. Right. The other component, though, is the lack of child care. Your daycare closed, your school closed, or your child care provider is unavailable due to COVID reasons. Not because their car doesn't work, but due to...
All right, so they have to say that the V word, the virus, is the reasoning for this. Right. You can't force them to use PTO.
You cannot force them to use PTO. Under the latest guidelines that came out over the weekend, if they choose to supplement their PTO, to supplement this paid leave. Wait a minute, I'm ahead of myself.
It's okay. It's a lot.
The 2 weeks is 100%. Okay. And you cannot require, you being the employer,
Okay.
cannot require that they use PTO first.
Okay. But you can pay them that after that.
You can pay them that after that.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. And they don't have to provide proof.
The guidelines don't necessarily require proof.
Okay.
They're very vague on that to date as far as the health-related. The theory, again, there is the doctors and the emergency rooms and the urgent cares are crazy.
They can't get in
Don't
to see
waste
anybody.
time
Okay.
trying to get a doctor's note.
And you cannot, because what I want you
But
to do
if it's like if you have something,
Uh-huh.
I mean, what I would recommend is if they have something, ask them to turn it in. If they don't have it, don't deny it because they don't have it.
right, because you can't retaliate against them.
You cannot retaliate against them because they're taking it or need to take it.
Well, as long as I've been a business owner, advising business owners, there's going to be one in the crowd that's going to call in sick all the time.
absolutely.
That's, somebody sneezed yesterday. I've got it too.
No, they have to have the symptoms or possibly direct exposure, like someone that lives with them. And
But they can just tell you that.
A doctor has told them you need to stay home for 2 weeks. Not because, and I actually had this question,
Okay.
my daughter works in this plant and someone there has it and she doesn't even know who it is, but they use the same break room. That's not it. Now, if that employee
Right.
has the symptoms, then yes, that employee would, be entitled to
Okay,
it.
because this is a lot more clear.
No,
than
and
when
there's a lot of the public doesn't understand it. They think, oh my God, I went to the grocery store and the person was coughing.
Right.
Yeah,
That's not what it is.
We're not there yet.
Okay, good. Because Gia Wiggins with Moral
met
Resource.
Gia,
Oh, isn't she a great person?
She's great. I love her. She's
I
so
love
cute.
her. She's been on the show a couple times, but she came on 2 weeks ago when this thing was first hidden, and we were going, holy crap, this is going to so muck with so many small businesses.
Right.
It's not even funny. I was envisioning this mass exodus on April Fool's Day because we thought it was April 2nd then. Mm-hmm. Everybody thought it was April 2nd, and now it's
right.
It's April 1st.
Well, it actually said by April 2nd.
Okay.
And they just pushed it up one day.
so they did push
The
it up.
statute said by April 2nd.
Because I felt like all these people we've been talking to, we've told them wrong.
Yeah.
Not at the time I talked to you.
The DOL guidance came out and said it will be effective April 1. So that was the difference. And
Okay.
they had that authority under the language of the statute.
Okay. All right. So there's your reasons for that. Now, what I've got some people thinking now is, well, I was told to at first go ahead and let them go. My business is closed. Let them get on unemployment.
Right.
Okay. So mass flooding to unemployment, and that's going to be a self-implosion all by itself. All right. So then now under these new other things that have come out, including the big one that was signed on Friday, I need to pay my people in order to get the tax credits.
Yes. Well, there's 2 tax credits, of course.
Okay,
There's the
please.
paid leave. It's not actually, it is a tax credit on your payroll taxes.
Okay.
You know that part better
I
than
do.
me. Then there's the loan law that came out last week,
Right.
the business assistance law, where if you keep people on the payroll and need a loan to fund that, that loan will be forgiven after a year or whatever.
Okay, so those are the 2 right there, y'all. Right there. Now, correct me when I want somebody to tell me I'm wrong,
Right.
so I
And
learn how to
I
be.
have not studied the
Right.
loan part.
So I
I'm
learned
not
how
an
to be right. This is, thank God for my daughter Katie right now. All right. So the tax credit on that is that if you have to pay someone for any of those 6 reasons, then you get a tax credit for that
on your payroll tax.
on your payroll taxes. You can get it at the end of the year, but if you want it now, they're changing the 941
The
forms.
IRS came out with a guidance.
Okay.
They're working fast too, like the DOL. Someone said they've never seen the federal government work as fast as they are. Their guidance, I believe, allows you to just not pay that portion of the payroll tax that matches what you've paid in this leave.
Right.
Yeah, and I would defer to Kenny on the tax part, or Kenny Crow, or anybody.
Kenny Crow?
close.
Oh,
Okay.
absolutely. Absolutely. All right. So any of this information, I've given a disclaimer every time we've done one of these since this crap started, is that go to your advisor.
Exactly.
Don't expect them to say, hey, you want to chat for an hour? They're busy. Be patient, just like with the people in the grocery stores and the health field and everywhere else. They're getting bombarded right now. And they're continuing to change the rules.
Daily.
Didn't more guidance come out last night?
Friday, I looked before I left work. Saturday morning at 6 o'clock, there's a brand new guidance, 28 pages.
Oh, my gosh. I just can't even imagine because they're reacting.
Well, they're doing what they need to do, which is clarify the law, which was written
Right.
quickly and was ambiguous. So, and April 1 is 2 days away right now.
Yeah. we're taping a couple shows today just because this stuff is so pertinent.
Right.
And Johnny's going to rush to get this one out because people need to know what to do. You know, I've got these people. Now, like Payroll Vault, we're not going to do all that. Our people are at home, working remotely. We're going to continue working.
Right.
You know, the other one, if somebody gets sick, we're going to take care of our team.
Right.
That's what you do.
Right.
You know, and we're an essential business anyway.
Right.
So, you know, I think it's those restaurants, they've been trying to pay people because the people that have been with them a long time, you know, do they let them go or do they stay and pay them and get the credits?
Well, they have to have the revenue to get the credits.
Yep.
And the only way they can get that is with the loans. But how long? I mean, I hate it, but some of these small restaurants, how long can they stay open?
Yes, that's my point.
Now, they are entitled to the small business exemption. Let me get my notes so I explain this properly. And this was in the DOL guidance that came out over the weekend. The original statute just said a small business with 50 or less employees may be exempt if they can prove that compliance would jeopardize the viability of their continued business. Under these guidelines, they clarified that the small business exemption applies not only to private companies, but also religious and nonprofit organizations, which is great, particularly for our nonprofits.
Can you read that one more time?
The small business exemption. Who can get it?
Okay.
Any employer with less than 50 employees who can show certain things, which I'll go into in a minute.
Okay.
Any employer for this purpose includes private employers, commercial companies like yours and mine,
right,
religious organizations, and nonprofit organizations, because there was some lack of clarity as to whether nonprofits could.
Okay, so, you know, Kiss Me Place, Penelope House,
yes,
all these others.
They're all subject to it.
Okay.
The small business exemption, however, is only for the child care related absence because your daycare, school, care provider is unavailable due to COVID. If it's not available for the sickness related reasons, either yours or the person you're taking care of, because again, the government wants people to stay home for 2 weeks if they possibly have it. So they still get the 2 weeks and nobody's exempt.
Okay. What does all that really mean? Just pretend we're on my back porch.
Okay, well, I don't, and at the beginning we kind of jumped ahead.
I know.
Okay, so we went through the 2 weeks.
Okay.
Hopefully most people can afford that and at least get the loans or something to do it.
Right.
The other part of that, though, is if it's a child care related absence, COVID has affected your child care, your school, whatever, those people get up to 12 weeks. If they've worked, that's the expansion of the Family Leave Act.
Oh.
The Family Leave Act normally only applies if you've worked there a full year and you have 1,250 hours.
Okay.
Under this special temporary exception, it applies to anybody who's worked there 30 days or more, including part-time, full-time, so there's no work hour requirements.
Right.
For the child care pay, both under the Paid Sick Leave Act and the expanded FMLA Act, that's only paid at 2/3 of their normal pay up to, I believe it's $211, something like that, a week.
I think it was about $2,000,
Yeah, but that can extend for up to 12 weeks.
Holy cow.
Because it's part of the Family Leave Act.
How
now.
can a business with no revenue coming in pay that?
Well, the point for this exemption.
Okay.
For the small business exemption.
All right.
So 50 or less employees, you are exempt. As I read this latest guideline, you don't apply for anything. You don't have to get permission. You are exempt from the child care payments, either under the Paid Sick Leave Act or under the Enhanced Family Leave Act.
All right. So those 6 things that people can tell you.
What I'm calling the health-related things.
Okay. Well, how Katie and I, the language we've used with a lot of people that we've talked to is say there's 6 things. The first 3 things, you have to do this. The bottom 3 things, you have to do that. So, and then when Gia was on, it was, if you have 1 employee, this counts.
It does count.
All right. But now you're saying if it's under 50, they don't have to do that?
You are exempt if you can show 1 of 3 things.
Okay.
If you can demonstrate it. So, the first one is that compliance would result in expenses and financial obligations exceeding revenues and cause your business to cease operating.
Duh.
Right. Okay.
That wasn't aimed at you at all.
The absence of a particular employee, because you can exempt just certain employees and not everybody, The absence of a particular employee would risk the financial health or operations of the business because of their specialized skills, knowledge, and responsibilities, like a key employee kind of idea. Okay. The third is you have insufficient workers available to perform what's needed, and you need to have them there to continue the tasks and services needed to operate. Any of those three things will subject you to the exemption, but the exemption may be taken only if an authorized officer of the business determines that you meet one of those things.
I'm so confused. And Mama had me tested when I was young.
Okay, you want me to summarize it? Because actually I have a summary.
Oh, that's great. Yeah.
The business is exempt, as I read the latest guidance, if less than 50 employees, the leave is requested for a child care-related issue from COVID, and an authorized officer of the company determines that one or more of the above reasons applies.
Okay, so if it could hurt the company, you don't have to do this.
It has to jeopardize the viability is the language of the statute.
Okay.
So it's not just, oh my God, I'm going to lose 10% of my profits. Right. It's got to be like, this is going to put us out of business.
Okay. Okay.
And it could be money. It could be my key person that's the only one that can do the main thing, like you keep talking about Katie.
Yeah.
It could be something
any
else.
of the team, really. Yeah.
And what they're recommending, and there's no guidelines specifically on the documentation requirements. Again, you don't have to turn it in at this point. And DOL, in fact, in this latest guidance says, please don't send us any documentation.
Okay.
Because they're not equipped for it.
Right.
But what the guidance recommends, and everybody I've heard is recommending, is you need to keep records. So, okay, my business revenue loss is blah, blah, blah. Or I anticipate that it'll be this.
Right.
The cost of letting all these people that need to stay home because of child care would be more than that.
All right. Now, we're planning on, when we were talking to Payroll Vault Corporate and all the other payroll vaults around the country, and there's quite a few of them now, is that we're setting up separate pay items to be able to report. Don't put that in with your regular gross wages in your QuickBooks. Set up a different
I think
pay
that,
item.
yes, because then it will be real easy to segregate that if somebody comes in and says, we don't think you were really exempt. Because an employee still has the right to report to DOL that you're not complying.
Well, they could do that anytime anyway, just like anybody
and
can
in fact,
sue you.
The guidance says it's have employer questions and employee questions.
Okay.
And the employee question is, what do? I think my company's not complying. And they say, call your local DOL office, wage and hour office. Mm-hmm. So what would I anticipate would happen if they did that, which is just anticipating based on regular wage and hour complaints,
right,
is that the investigator would contact the company and say, show me the reason, show me the documentation that supports your considering yourself exempt.
Okay. All right. Everybody listening, can you imagine my head just freaking exploding right now?
This is a lot of information.
So much. And I think people are relying on what's on, Facebook or social media. And so, find your people. In case someone has a true problem with this, how can they get help? Who do they call? Do they call you?
I would be glad to help anybody. You can tell I'm staying up to speed on it.
Yeah.
And my landline is 441-9241, area code 251, CJC at johnstonadams.com. They can call if they have an attorney, and I would highly recommend it be an employment attorney.
Yes,
because
I second that.
This part of the new laws is so interrelated with other employment laws that have been around for 50 years, 80 years, 20 years, whatever. You really need someone advising you in the employment law aspects of it that's familiar with all those laws. Okay. Certainly, their payroll company is keeping up to speed, and there's CPAs.
Yes,
have some, especially on the tax credit issues and some of those other issues. I would rely on the CPAs.
All right, fantastic. Now, what about if somebody owns multiple businesses and there's that word called attribution? All right, which means if you own more than 50% of more than one company, what you do for one company, you got to do with the other.
I'm not familiar with what you're talking about, and that's not in the statute of the regs. What is in the regs if you own multiple businesses?
Okay.
And there's sufficient interrelation. They could be separate companies, corporations.
That's my question.
They could be separate, have separate EINs.
Right.
But if there's sufficient interrelation among the businesses, it could be deemed, and this actually would assist businesses in this case, it could be deemed an integrated relationship, integrated company. So you would aggregate all the employees. And if it's more than 500, you don't have to do any of this stuff right now.
Really?
And there's another thing called the joint employer doctrine.
Okay.
Which basically, leasing companies.
Yeah.
Okay, so you lease to, 50 businesses, and there's 10 people at each business. Well, that'll put you at 500.
So,
and the companies you lease to have to count those employees towards their count. In some circumstances, there's all little rules on this. In some circumstances, the companies say, well, only, 50 of these people are actually on my payroll. The rest are on so-and-so's.
Right.
If they're working at your company and you're directing and controlling them.
So they're falling under both ways.
Right.
The leasing company doesn't have to do it, but you possibly do.
Yeah, they can have to do it.
Okay. Because there's a lot of people who use a leasing company here in town.
And I can, if you want, if I have time, I can quickly run through integrated employer. Not all of these, the factors considered.
Okay.
It depends, according to the law, on the totality of the circumstances of the relationship. But the things they look at are common management, interrelation between operations, they support each other, centralized control of labor relations. So if you've got mother company or the main company that handles all the personnel and issues the handbooks and all the recruiting and hiring, that would be the type of centralized labor relations. The degree of common ownership or financial control.
That's attribution, common ownership. Okay.
And that's not, they don't necessarily have to have that if these other factors are strong enough.
Okay.
And I'm not sure if that alone is enough if there's none of the other factors there. But anyway, it's not determined by the application of a single criteria, but the entire relationship in its totality.
Okay.
This is all law. This integrative employers, that doctrine's been around for decades.
Yeah.
But there was a case that was discussing it, and they said just because one person had ownership in 3 companies wasn't enough because there wasn't the rest of the interrelation factor.
Okay.
Joint employer, 2 or more businesses exercise some control over the work or working conditions of the employee. One employer acts in the interest of the other employer in relation to the employee. And that might be the centralized labor relations, where they're doing all the support stuff.
Right.
Employers are not disassociated with respect to the employee's environment and may be deemed to share control because one employer is controlled by the other one. So it's all very complicated. That's definitely when they need to talk to their lawyer, but...
Yeah.
There are lots of instances where even though an affiliated system or whatever has some very small companies with, 20 employees, but they don't have to provide the paid leave just for one. And again, in this case, these doctrines are advantageous to the employers.
Right.
Usually they're used against them.
Yeah.
They can aggregate all the employees and determine whether or not they're required to pay these leaves. Now, having said that, this could change.
Yeah.
Because there was a bill circulated in Congress last week before the stimulus.
Oh, another one? Yay.
No, this was before the stimulus package was passed that did all kinds of things, but one of the things that did was change the definition of employer under both of these laws to include everybody. Now, that bill has not passed. It's not dead.
Okay.
But, I think the Congress people have all gone home, so, I'm not sure.
Do any of these people making the laws own a business? I would just like to know that.
Probably not.
Probably
they've been up there for their whole lives.
So, what do you know what it takes every day?
Yeah, and I heard one of the Congress people say that one of the theories of excluding the people with over 500, which kind of makes no sense to me because they're probably the ones that can afford it the best,
right,
is that, they should be doing all these things anyway. They have all this great ETO and short-term disability and stuff like that.
They don't know nothing. All right, so I have 2 questions. And I'm sure if we had opened this up to phone lines, we'd be
here till tomorrow.
Yeah, later. Because they change it again and be a different show. All right, so if I have a company with 100 people and I have a company with 3 people in it, and they're not interchangeable, they're independent of what they do, then I'm exempt with the 3 people and not exempt with the 100 people.
You can be exempt with the 3 people.
Okay.
You have to prove those things, those 3 factors that we talked about earlier.
Okay.
One of the 3.
And, one thought I've had is how the hell are they even going to regulate all this stuff? I mean, last week the IRS shut the phone system down for their support system.
And that's why they're doing this, the DOL at least, and I think the IRS as well, is doing this by guidances because they have authority to release those when they want.
Right.
Whereas the regulations, there's a very systemic way of doing it. And, they have to publish them, just like the overtime thing that we just went through last year. They have to publish the, proposed.
Right.
Let people comment for some period of time and then, put the comments together and reissue it as a final. Well, that would take the rest of the year at least.
Yeah.
So that's why they're doing it this way.
Jeez. Okay, so we could talk for hours and hours and hours. And I really enjoy your company. I've enjoyed working with you over the years. And thank you for coming on the show. And thank you to Crow Shields and Bailey for making this happen and putting us together. I don't know why I didn't think of you first. I'm sorry, but I'm glad they did. It was really smart. So, Celia Collins, my takeaway from all this in labor man's, because, my daddy was a fireman. So if you have somebody that doesn't want to be there, they don't want to work for you anyway, they don't want to work, it's better for both of you to lay them off before Wednesday, April 1st, and let them go get unemployment.
Probably, because they might tell you they're sick or their child care went away, and then you would probably have to go through some of these things.
Unless they were under 50 people. That's the
Only
hardest part.
If you think you're eligible for the exemption, and that's got to be determined company by company. I can't tell you, who specifically is eligible. I could probably look at your information and say, yeah, that'll probably cut it. See, but I can't just say who's eligible and who's not.
I asked that because I was trying to tell somebody that has high turnover over this, and I know their business slowed down, so I was trying to tell them about this, and they go, well, I'm under 50.
No, I'm telling people if, we were going to fire this person a week ago, and I don't know what to do now. I'm like, you better go ahead and do it now before they tell you they're sick or they've got symptoms or something, because then you're stuck with them for a while. Now, one thing we didn't want to talk about, but I think it's really, really important to state, is that all this, staying at home, child care issue, if the person can telework, they don't get any of this paid leave.
Yeah, they're working.
It's if they are able to telework and whatever, and not everybody can, we know that, but if they can perform their duties, especially with the child care one, by telework, then they're not entitled to the leave. Now, under the latest guidelines...
And I can fire them if they refuse.
You could fire them if they refuse.
Good. Okay, that's important.
Because they can work.
Yeah.
If this is only for people that can't work.
Gotcha.
If they're home and, say they're home because they're waiting for a diagnosis and then they really get sick.
Right.
And they can't telework anymore, then they would be entitled.
Then it kicks in. Well, see, how does the unemployment work in all of this?
Okay. A week or so ago, the Alabama Department of Labor changed their unemployment rules just for this situation. Normally, you have to be laid off, terminated, not for misconduct, whatever, to get unemployment.
Right.
The change here is that qualifying reasons include furlough because of coronavirus, quarantine by a medical professional or government agency, not total self-quarantine because I don't want to get out, sent home without pay due to employers' COVID concerns. Oh, I know someone in your family that might be sick, so you can't come to work. Or diagnosed with COVID or caring for a family member diagnosed with COVID. Normally, you have to be ready, willing, and able to work in order to receive Alabama unemployment benefits. That is waived for these situations.
Okay.
And they're taking claims now, and they're real backed up.
Didn't they have like 71,000 in 2 days?
Now, if the employer files partial claims on behalf of, for instance, furloughed, and like I got to lay off this entire division because they're a restaurant or whatever, I can't.
Right.
If the employer actually files the claims on their behalf, which they can do, they have to have permission, the employer rating is not affected for any of those claims.
Katie and I have been telling people that all week.
That's a really good.
But it's a pain in the butt for them.
Yeah,
the owners to go on and do that. And some of these sites are really hard to navigate. And I've told people, I said, I've been putting out on my CFO consulting services page, here's a page that has all the links on it. Don't listen to anybody else.
Right.
So don't click on anything else. Because the only site you should go to for the unemployment is labor.alabama.gov.
Exactly.
That's no other site.
Similarly, for the federal paid leave is DOL.gov.
DOL.gov.
And they've got so much information on there, you could
get lost in it. Yeah. And then I think that's part 2 is people getting lost, so they're just reaching out and saying, help me.
Right.
Well, y'all be patient because these people trying to help, it takes hours and hours, and as soon as they learn it, they change it again.
Right. Exactly.
Yep. All right, Celia Collins, thank you so much of Johnston Adams for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Karen. I hope that was helpful to everybody.
Oh, man, overload, make your head explode, but we need to know. Be a responsible business person. Know what you need to do. Take your choices. Nobody can tell you what to do in a lot of these things.
Right. Because nobody knows. It's unprecedented.
Exactly. So try to make the best wise decision for yourself. If you'll tell them one more time how to get in touch with you on the website, maybe.
Okay, it's www.johnstonadams.com. Landline 251-441-9241. Email cjc@johnstonadams.com.
All right. We always end the show with the cheers. So cheers to people like you who protect the employers.
No handshakes, just cheers with our bottle.
We're doing a virtual cheer because we're social distancing. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you, Karen. I enjoyed it.
Please be sure to subscribe to Cheers to Business podcast on iTunes or anywhere else that you get your podcast. Visit our Facebook and be sure to give us a like. And if you have any questions or topics you'd like us to discuss, shoot us an email from the website cheerstobusiness.com.